Whoa, and shalom again, family. Shalom, Rastafari. This is your brother again, Lidj, Yefdi, Yohannis, wolde, Immanuel. And once again, we are here with more of our Amharic studies. Just going through a lot of older, lessons from the LOJ Society, Rastafari Groundation, Rastafari Sabbatical. And, brothers and sisters, I had to, come to you again for ones and ones who are seeking to learn more of their Amharic. This is definitely another good resource to, just begin at here at Lion of Judah Society on YouTube. There's still the beginning stages for a lot of ones and ones, few of the vids here, a couple of catchphrases and, usual couple of words that you might be able to pick up on and learn as you kind of go along. But what I really wanted to start off with you, brothers and sisters, is more so focusing on the fidelat, or the alphabet, in the Ethiopian Amharic language. Brothers and sisters, I mean, this is your groundation right here. This is where the foundation begins, right here with the Ethiopian fidelat. And here on the first left hand side, here are the first 33 letters. But before I really get into that, brothers and sisters, I wanted to point out how closely related the Hebrew and the Amharic languages are, along with other what they would call Shemitic or Semitic languages. They play a lot of games with you in saying that the words are Semitic or Shemitic. And if you study the so-called Hebrew languages, Arabic and Ethiopian Amharic languages, you tend to find out that all of these languages are indeed Shemitic, but they come from a certain root. And that root is more so inter-African, especially East and Southern African, more so regions. They would say Middle East, these days, but, before they actually cut the Suez Canal, the regions of what they know as the Middle East were attached to Egypt, making them a part of Africa. So that's, a whole debate in itself, and even the name Africa is, debatable. But, that's another lecture, another point that we won't get into. But anyway, even if you actually look up most of these languages, brothers and sisters, including the Hebrew, they would even tell you themselves that the language is Afro-Shemitic. So, I mean, that's another point, to point out there. And another great Ethiopian Jewish scholar, Beta Israel, one I hold in very high regard, and I love a lot of his work. I love listening to a lot of his teachings, is Dr. Ephraim Yitzhak, or Ephraim Isaac, as what many would know him as. He's a very proficient, well-studied, well-honored, well-revered teacher. And I definitely hold, our brethren, and of course our great sister, and Tehitana Girma, and Ras Tafari, and those high regards, because, no one else was really bringing a lot of these studies along, aside from these people. And the only other person I had to look to for these type of studies, I mean, at least 5 to 7 years ago, was someone like a Dr. Ephraim Yitzhak. And, he just had done so many great works. And let's see if we can really pull up some of his work from a lot of the linguistics that he's done over the years. Dr. Ephraim Isaacs is, I don't even know how to really explain it. I mean, he's like a guru. I wouldn't like to use that word, but just to get ones and ones to understand, where I'm coming from with that type of, reverence for such a teacher. He really put in the work in learning these ancient languages, and for the most part, he didn't really have to study that that hard, because most of those languages he was already studying. And here, this is another great resource for ones and ones. Hopefully the system won't crash here. With like when them yadding, when going through these sites, kind of go through a lot of them at a certain time. But this is a great one here that I had studied for some time. And here's the brother's site here, as you can see. Let's get a little scroll in. Here's his name, Dr. Ephraim Isaacs, PhD. I'm pretty sure he studied at Princeton, Harvard, one of the CUNYs in New York. I mean, just a various and vast amount of knowledge coming from that brother. And as an elder, a Shemagle, myself, I look to, his work very, very much. And here are some of the languages here that he has on this site. The Akkadian, the Hebrew, Aramaic, which is very close to the Hebrew. The Syriac, of course, too. The Sabean, or the Shebaean, from what once would know as Sheba. Ge'ez, of course. And the Arabic. And we'll even pull up, a little language chart for ones and ones like myself who might have come up in the Catholic Church. And you might have learned a lot of Latin. So, just picking up on a lot of where these ancient languages came from and how they came down to us in the English today and other languages. You kind of see how they were laid out, from the Proto-Canaanite, the Ugarit, Phoenician, or what they call a Phoenician. It's more so the ancient or period in ancient Egypt. And here on this side we have what became known as the Amharic, or Ethiopian today. And notice how it more so developed nearly all on its own. The South Arabic would be more the Shebaean or the Sabean. You see? And many other various languages, especially the Greek here, the Latin over here, from the Etruscan, and stems from the Greek, the Koine Greek, not more the modern Greek of what, most so Grecians will speak today. But, just a little snapshot for ones and ones. Some of the major alphabets of today are what ones and ones might use. But again, coming back to the Ethiopian Fidelat here, ones and ones, if you really want to learn more of the Amharic, this is, your starting point here, learning your alphabet. Just like when you were a child, or any other ones and ones who might have come to America, what's usually the first thing that they would teach you? They would teach you the alphabet. Unless you were picking up the language, from everyday speech, in which the English is kind of, a funny language, and where you can easily pick up a lot of things because there are so many catchphrases, and shortening of words that usually ones and ones can pick up on from time to time, especially, the further south you get. I'd have to say myself, originally being from the South, it's very easy to pick up on more the southern tongue of English, because it's usually more straightforward and to the point, and so it's sometimes hard to catch for others who might live in other parts of the country. But for the most part, if you learn Southern English, you pretty much learn most of what English speakers might know of as today, because in southern slang and southern English is a whole nother language in itself. But again, I say, brothers and sisters, and let's make another point on this. I keep saying start here with the first 33 Fidelat, or the alphabet here for the Amharic. But let's make a real note here. Let's kind of slide this to the side. And I'm going to show you another point in where the Ethiopian Amharic relates to the Hebrew. And hopefully ones and ones will be able to get this, because it's really vital, in really understanding the Hebrew and, of course, the Amharic, because they're so close together that, it's, undeniable. So here we have the Ras Tafari Renaissance compilation of, the Hebrew Aleph Beit, or the Aleph Tau, as we would like to say at the beginning and the end. The first letter being Aleph, the last letter being Tau, or Tav, from the Yiddish, or the European Jewish tongue. But what you don't notice about a lot of the Hebrew is that there is not a lot of vowels, or what they would know as vowels today in the English, because mostly the Hebrew was written out and ones and ones would speak it from the original tongue, and the original mother tongue, or the original perspective of it, would be understood by original Hebraic peoples, people who would speak the Hebrew proficiently. But as the years passed on and the Hebrew people were scattered abroad, leaving a lot of their scriptures, a lot of their literature, a lot of their, just other treasures of what they left behind in recording their own history. A lot of people found it hard to understand and construct what they would know as the Hebrew, especially coming up until today. Now, with the European Jewish conversion, and I do say conversion because it's documented that the European Jews didn't really come into being Jews until about the 6th to 8th century or so, so the 700s, mid 700s AD, in becoming what you would know as Jewish. And, just using the word Jewish, and a lot of people would make jokes about it, but it's a very true statement. They are indeed Jewish, or Jew-like, or Hebrew-like in the manner. But, that's no slight upon, the European Jews, because they've learned and perfected the Hebraic language, the Hebraic studies, the Hebraic practices, to the best of their ability. Not so much in the fullness, but many have done great works in constructing the Hebrew. But what you don't know about it in fullness is that they've used this language here, the Ethiopian Amharic and the Ge'ez, to actually reconstruct what you would know as modern Hebrew, or the Yiddish today. Even many of the Hasidim, or the ultra-Orthodox or Orthodox Jews themselves, would acknowledge themselves as Yiddishkites. Now, for ones and ones who really study the Torah, the Nebiim, and of course the Holy Scriptures, in entirety, you would know that there is no such tribe mentioned as the Yiddishkites, throughout all of Scripture. But they would be more so closely tied to the Jebusi, or the Jebusites. So, just, in taking that in, and, there's a few other tribes that might be mentioned in with the Jebusites as well, but, just to make the point clear about who's who amongst the scriptures and amongst the world today, that's, the story in a nutshell, so to speak. But getting back to the point at hand, my brothers and sisters, so here we have the 22 Aleph Beit, or the Aleph Tau, and what you would use in constructing vowel pointing for the Hebrew today. Ones and ones would use what they know as something like this, the Nikudim, or the vowel pointing. In here it shows the vowel sounding, or the phonetics of how you would pronounce each sound here. A, E, A, A, O, U. The schwa here. And different type of sounds that makes like an owl sound here. So if this was an aleph and it had a schwa here, it would be like an I, like Elohim or Aile. Certain words like that. Or this word right here would be more closer to the Elohim. Here the silent tone would more so be between more letters, one on the right, one on the left here. And the naming of this nikudim, or this vowel pointing, this binyam, here you would have the names here, the kamats, patach, sere, segol, shiva, or shiva, cholam, chirik, kubutz. Kubutz would be even that kubutz is a word in itself in Hebrew. Shuruk, chataf, kamatz, chataf, patach,